Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the House of Kayfabe, and we are still on the tip of hashtag HOK is everywhere. We are everywhere, and this time it was Matt Mullins and Adam Harris. I'm sitting here with Stephen P. New, Derek Jones, Stephen Barker, Matt Mullins, and Adam Harris. And Matt Mullins and Adam Harris, you were at Monday Night Raw this past Monday, and you got to give us the spill. We'll start with you, Matt. What stood out about Raw? Because, you know, from the couch, it's pretty fucking terrible. But from the live seats, it can be pretty different. So I know that from experience. Me and Derek experienced some live wrestling. Derek didn't experience any WWE wrestling, but I did. And I know that some of the shittiest things can still seem pretty cool when you're ringside. But Matt, what was your experience like?
Well, not only did we go to Monday Night Raw, the Raw right before WrestleMania, we were 10 rows back.
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. You didn't even go to Raw. You went to WrestleMania Raw. Okay. Anyway,
Inroad J. So we didn't get tickets until the day of. And this is my little preface for all you ticket hunters out there in the world. And you look at ticket prices a week before or something, and they were $700. Row J were $700 a week before Raw. I waited until about 3 hours before and got the tickets for a a tenth of that.
What? So $70?
They were like $89. Yeah,
it was like $90.
Wow.
Which service or which app, Mullins?
StubHub.
StubHub. Okay.
So there's StubHub, SeatGeek, and Ticketmaster. I was watching all three. They all were going down exponentially, you know, leading up to it. But I would wait till the day of to get tickets if you can. You know, I don't have patience. I'm a trigger puller. So it was physically killing me to not go ahead and buy some tickets. But I'm glad I waited because I really spent like $340 after some the fees, but it wasn't bad.
Okay, now on the other side of that, when it came to AEW, I got those front row seats because I bought them the day before they went on sale with a special code. I got those seats for $400. Now, the very next week, the two seats beside of us were like $900. So if you come in super early, you can get a deal. If you come in super late, you can get a deal. Right. So what stood out to you guys, Matt? What stood out to you at the show that really impacted your night?
I wish I could tell you that it moved me with storytelling and great wrestling, but unfortunately, we didn't get that. I mean, we didn't get that. There's a few moments that I liked because I got to see it up close. And I had my girlfriend with me who is not a wrestling fan, and she got to see some of the magic of, you know, the kids being around and getting really into it and making the signs. And that part was magical to me, but there was no good storytelling to me whatsoever. Brock fumbled through his first promo. I love seeing him though.
Seeing him. We didn't get to see him when I went to SmackDown. He wasn't there.
Love seeing Cowboy
Brock. He was in great fashion. Yeah, he was in a great mood.
But didn't wrestle, you know, just came out, cut a promo. Same with Roman. I got to see Paul Heyman 10 rows back. Paul Heyman didn't say a fucking word, man. He didn't speak.
He handed the microphone to Reigns, and that was basically his only other duty. Although, if I can jump in here, man, I will say that was probably the highlight for me overall, was just getting to see that Roman Reigns entrance.
I was going to say,
it's epic.
Promo to see
it's
live.
Epic. The whole entrance is epic. The sound is awesome. My shoulder is still sore from pointing up in the air like this throughout the entire entrance. And the promo was fire, and that was the greatest part, is that Heyman didn't have to say anything. And when they were walking out, every move he made, though, still mattered. You know, seeing the master at work, seeing the wise man at work is always awesome. We saw him when Barker and I went to SmackDown during the Summer of Cena, which I will say was a much more exciting show. You know, Edge had just come back. There was a lot of stuff going on at that time. This was more of, you know, just kind of like keeping the pace towards WrestleMania, you know, but I will say Roman's promo was awesome. KO's promo ended up being awesome for sure. And so I think those were two of the bigger highlights, you know, just as far as seeing that stuff play out.
Yeah.
we should talk about our expectations though, because of course all day we were talking about, is Stone Cold going to be there? You know, we thought maybe this was going to be where they bring Stone Cold out. And then we also, of course, speculating about Cody. Is Cody going to be there? You know, will this be where they bring out Cody? Who is Seth Rollins' opponent going to be? You know, and so with those sort of expectations, you know, I would say anybody would be disappointed because we ended up with the return of Bobby Lashley and then another extra promo from Sasha the Barber Banks.
I'm sorry. I hate to break up, you know, what you guys are talking about, but I have to bring up what you just talked about, which is Bobby Lashley coming back. And they bring Bobby Lashley back to go head to head with Omos. My thoughts on this is unless they are about to feed Omos to Bobby Lashley to build Bobby, they are really fucking up here. This is a terrible move for the WWE. It's a terrible move for Bobby Lashley and what they've built with Bobby Lashley. And then all in all, it's a terrible move for Omos too, because it's going to make people hate him, especially anybody who knows what's going on here. It's just bad booking.
What do you mean gonna hate? We already hate him.
Yeah, we do. We already hate him.
He sucks so bad, Adam Harris says bad shit about him.
How about this, though? I thought about it. The only angle that could work is if MVP comes out and manages Omos.
Ooh. Turns on Lashley. When we saw that, and I watched it back, you know, and they made it look.
Could somebody wake me up when we're done talking about Almost?
But it looked like the first. I said to Mullins, I was like, "Are they burying Lashley?" Because Omos was throwing him around.
Manhandling him. Bobby Lashley.
And that came across on TV, I suppose. You guys all watched it, right? Like, it just seemed bad. And then there was one big move that didn't even hit. You know, Mullins, did you hear a huge pop when he fell? Like, it wasn't even
a fucking shoulder block. Come on.
Yeah.
Right. What I was thinking is you could have totally built Commander Aziz versus Omos at WrestleMania if you wouldn't have fed Commander Aziz and Apollo to this man, and not to mention you just fed the Viking Raiders to him as well. The Viking Raiders, you're building this tag team, and you just fed them both.
What have they done to War Machine? What have they done to my boys?
The only thing they're building them towards is their release, I'm afraid. Mark my words.
Well, you know, it didn't feel like that when I was at SmackDown. When I was at SmackDown, it felt like they really were getting behind the Viking Raiders, and then they just feed them to Omos. It's like they don't understand. It's like, we're going to build Omos. Well, if you kill like 7 characters you've been building for the last 9 months, you really who gives a fuck who you built? If you built one guy when you destroyed 7, I don't understand it.
If the God Emperor was here, he'd find you for saying character, by the way.
Yeah.
Gimmick.
Not just that, but guys, there is no building Omos. He doesn't speak well. He needs a manager to be talking for him, and you need to be building him gradually. He should have been working in some territory or on some indies or something, trying to learn the sport of professional wrestling. He's green as grass. Now, if you wanted to book him in the curtain jerk match with General Zod at WrestleMania on Friday night or Saturday morning or whatever you wanted to do, I'm all right with that. But to have
General
him
Zod is way cooler than General Aziz. You can't even call him General Zod. General Zod would kick his ass.
Well, no doubt. And the guy with the
General
beard,
Zod would never wear a jacket that was too small for him. Ever.
No, but he'd wear something down to his navel, though. But that's neither here nor there. But I there is no building Omos. And why didn't you have some match like Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre? Why didn't you revisit that feud or something? But instead, you've got Drew McIntyre, the chosen one, versus Happy Hump Day, and then you've got Bobby Lashley versus Omos. Give me a break.
Probably
Almost is totally going to turn into almost, because he's going to almost have been a star, but really they've just screwed it up with booking. Speaking of someone else that they've screwed up the booking for, not only did you get to see Roman Reigns from SmackDown, you also got to see Ricochet from SmackDown. Let's bring Ricochet from SmackDown to Raw for no reason, just to job him out again. Since we jobbed into the job tag team last week, this week we're going to job him out to the guy who's facing a fucking commentator at WrestleMania. And he just won the Intercontinental Championship. What the absolute fuck? Can anyone tell me how this makes sense whatsoever?
I thought this was going to be a great match, man.
I thought it was going to be a great match too. I thought that was going to be our wrestling match. In fact,
Derek, did you watch Raw? Have you been watching Raw?
Yeah, I watch everything.
So give us our AEW. Yeah, so even if it's shit, man, he's going to fucking sludge through it. So give us the AEW super fan, super Mark. Come on, man, you're being too quiet down there not to bury this shit. What are you doing?
Listen, I mean, you guys are giving some great points. I mean, if we want to go back to Omos, I mean, what's his stats? How tall is it, and how much does he weigh?
18 feet tall.
I think he's 7'1".
So
7'1" and like 360, 370.
So he's just big enough to make Vince come in his pants. I got it. Okay, so that's why we're pushing him. That's where this comes from. He likes big guys. He's trying to get away from the little guy. He's been doing it for a long time. Here's his opportunity. And we're completely missing the reason why. We look at it as a professional wrestling industry and not a sports entertainment industry, because we want it to be professional wrestling. We want it to make sense. We want it to look good. We want it to feel real. But Vince just wants it to be towers of people and larger than life characters that, and he doesn't care if they're good or not. All he looks at is that is a man, and when you see him walking down the street, the only thing you say is holy shit. That's his mindset. Now when we,
in a way, he's right, though. Almost is a threatening figure if you would book him right. He doesn't have to necessarily be trained. He doesn't have to be a professional wrestler. But you can't put him in there and destroy Bobby Lashley. You can't destroy the Viking Raiders. You can't destroy, I mean, even Apollo. He's a former Intercontinental Champion, and him and his 7-foot bodyguard couldn't get anywhere with Omos. You're doing the Braun Strowman. Next week, he should be flipping a fucking ambulance or something. It's ridiculous booking that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, but that's not fair to Braun. That's not fair to Braun Strowman, because he's fucking Bryan Danielson compared to almost.
But all you just told me was there's a little guy that Vince doesn't like because he's little. There's a tag team that Vince doesn't like because they're from Ring of Honor and Triple H hired him. And there's a big guy that's intimidating that's on the back end of his career, and they're done with him. Vince doesn't care about those guys anymore. They can't make him any money in the future. He's looking towards the future.
So I thought of my highlight, though, in this talk. My highlight of the entire experience, probably, that stands out in my mind, is when I took a restroom break. And I come back to my seat. And it's during the Drew McIntyre and Happy Corbin match. But I just looked in the ring and I saw the red suspenders, and I just looked at Adam when I was getting down the aisle, and I said, "Man, I love fucking Boogs." And he said, "Yeah, but that ain't Boogs."
I said, "Oh, that's great to hear, man, because that's Madcap Moss." That was funny.
I love Boogs. I love him. Him.
So while we're talking about him, now that a good transition into him, how big is that dude going to be when he turns heel on Shinsuke and Jeff Jarrett's in with that guitar?
Ooh.
Oh man, they better gimmick that fucking flying V when they broke that over him. That's not easy to break an electric guitar. That
could be dangerous.
That's real dangerous. That had to be
I do think Boogs has like real star potential, man. I do. I think he could go anywhere. This thing right now is a little goofy, but he's owning it, and you can tell obviously he's a performer, but I think he looks good too. Like I feel like Vince sees something in him also because he's so charismatic, but yet looks like a physical specimen.
His singlet that looks like jeans is enough for me not to like him.
Oh, that's dope, man. That's dope.
He can outlive that. I think.
2 words, denim singlet. I'm not sold. Anyway, Derek, I want to hear your opinion on this Ricochet thing because it's a fucking tragedy in my opinion.
So I don't know why they even put the belt on Ricochet, to be 100% honest, because they've never utilized him properly. Even when he first showed up, the coolest thing they let the guy do was have a pretty awesome entrance, and that was it. Like, they've never let him get any real traction. They've never let him have any form of a dominant style run. And I know he's not an overly intimidating guy, but when I say dominant style run, I mean clean, solid victories over his opponents. Pretty much every match he's in, he is the underdog in everything. And he's a waste.
But do you guys remember how over Ricochet was when he first started?
Yes.
Listen, Ricochet got himself over in the WWE with his in-ring work. He didn't have to talk a lot or any of that kind of stuff. And, people that were unfamiliar with his work were like, wow. I remember having the same reaction to him as I had when Jeff Hardy came out and took on Rob Van Dam. I
came in from some really big stuff. His matches with Ospreay really set the tone for him to show up in the WWE. I wonder, Shinsuke kind of got swept under the rug, but we seen Shinsuke and AJ both come over together. Maybe life would have been different if Ospreay would have came to, in
NXT though, Ricochet, it's so over like that. When he is in the ring, Ricochet's in the ring, and Velveteen Dream is at the ramp, and he says, "I can do whatever you can do, Ricochet." And Ricochet flips out of the ring and lands on his feet. I watched that.
Huge.
Dude,
that was awesome.
30 times the day after it happened, showing people like, "Hey, this is why I like wrestling." Don't
you love it when you have a moment like that to share with people that don't watch wrestling? And you'd be like, "Watch how cool this is," and then they're like, "Damn, maybe I do want to watch wrestling." You just don't get those anymore.
And then they're like, "What's he doing now?" And you're like, "Never mind."
Yeah.
Jobbing to like Los Boricuas or whoever the fuck that is.
Listen, man, I realize you got to give Austin Theory a big win. It's about time, because all he's done is lose, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he keeps getting beaten. Austin Theory finally picked up a win. Unfortunately, it has to be apparently the only guy that was available, the Intercontinental Champion.
Well, you just kind of said it yourself. All he's been doing is losing. Austin Theory has been losing and losing and losing and losing. And when you decide to give him a win, it's over your brand new Intercontinental Champion, who's the opposite of undefeated as champion.
Yeah. You couldn't let him beat Reggie, Adam Harris. He's got to beat Ricochet. He couldn't beat Reggie or R-Truth or somebody besides Ricochet that night.
I agree.
T-Bar.
I hate him over Ricochet, but the only thing that I think that could have saved that segment of him beating down Ricochet would be the layup that Adam and I for sure saw, and they just missed. They didn't do it. We're in fucking Pittsburgh. Bring Pat McAfee out right then. That's the biggest pop of the night. It's his hometown.
Oh, that's right.
Bring him out. It would have been like Austin. It might have, in Pittsburgh, that would have been just as good as Austin. It would have
been that big, and they just fucking didn't do it at all.
Pat McAfee could have cost Austin Theory the match. And it would have worked out perfect. But now I guess they're working on an angle with Ricochet where he's going to be the Intercontinental Champion who's down on himself. Because
never wins.
What is I don't understand the writing process. I really don't.
Their only storyline is literally to have the champion lose. That's the only way they can set up a storyline, is to have the champion get beat by the person who they're going to go into a title match with.
Well, not to mention this is not even an angle, because we're not building up to a match for Ricochet at WrestleMania. We're not. He's going to defend his title against Humberto and Angel Garza. On SmackDown.
He didn't even get a Mania. You're not even. How far have we fallen? The Intercontinental title hadn't even been defended at WrestleMania.
And here's another thing is, and I'm not for unifying the United States and Intercontinental Championship into one title. I'm not for that at all. But since you're doing that with Brock and Roman, you have a perfect opportunity to do Finn fucking Balor versus Ricochet. Why
Olympic
would
match.
you not take that opportunity? Why would that opportunity not be the one that you want to jump on? If you don't have anything for him, this kind of writes its fucking self, you are just ignoring it.
We talked about pro wrestling as an Olympic sport on a previous episode of the House of Kayfabe, and you should go check that out on YouTube. But right there is a match I would put at the Olympics, man. Finn Balor and Ricochet any night of the week, man. And I honestly thought Austin Theory and Ricochet could have had a good match, but it turned out to be a pretty brief one. And Theory hit his finisher, which is one thing that doesn't happen that often. Is somebody won with their finisher 1, 2, 3, just had to be over the IC champ.
Can someone enlighten me a little bit? Has someone read on the dirt sheets or anything that they're thinking about? Wait a minute, jobbing out Ricochet as the Intercontinental Champion, a la Big E when he was the World Champion.
Ouch.
That's what it looks like we're looking at right now. Well, maybe
they're just giving him time to pack his bags.
I know exactly what it was. What it was is they tossed that story to the side after Big E lost the title, and then they were like, what are we going to do with Ricochet? And they were like, go through all the old storylines over in the corner and pick one, and we'll go with that again.
Let's find another black champion that we can job out every single match while he's champion.
Right. That's pretty much where we're at. And one thing that I'd like to say before we take a break here is I want to say that I'm really glad to be sitting here staring at 5 members of the House of Kayfabe. We're I think Steve said before we went live, the band is back together right now. Very rare that all of us have the exact same time to get together and have a conversation. So to end this up, Matt Mullins, Adam Harris went to Raw. Tell us your final thoughts on this live event that HOK was represented by you guys.
My final thoughts. I'll let Adam end this. My final thoughts were that in the end of it, we spent like $330. I'm not super upset about it, but historically, the Raw leading into Mania, we were going to get something, and we did not get any of it. If I'm Stephen P. New and buying the $1,000 front row seats, I'm suing their ass.
Adam Harris, what are your final thoughts going into or coming out of Raw?
Well, actually, the only wrestling we saw was in the pre-tape, which was main event. Okay. And the first one who came out, which is a good preface for the Raw after WrestleMania, they've already advertised, but the first person to come out was Veer. And so speaking of big men with a bright future in the WWE, we got a preview of Veer. And so that's what I'm looking forward to on the Monday after. And I had a great time with my friends. It was awesome having Casey, who's not a real wrestling fan there. And,
Veer was there?
Veer was first match, dude. It was on main event. Yeah.
Who did he face?
Hold on. Let me look. I've got it written down here.
Adam writes down
Cedric
all the
Alexander.
matches.
Veer defeated Cedric Alexander with Shelton Benjamin.
Was there a difference in his character? Like from what I read, they're kind of revamping his character.
It looked the same as he looked before, I think. I mean, he was obviously very crafted and where he stood and everything, and where the camera angles were. It was
how did
very
the crowd
dominant.
react to Veer?
I don't remember it being a huge reaction. I was kind of surprised to see him because I didn't know if they were withholding him from TV or not. But the main event matchup, I guess you got to get him out there somewhere.
Okay, a better question for Adam and Matt both. Where was the big pop? Was there a gigantic pop?
Roman Reigns, guarantee it.
I would say the crowd was hottest for Roman Reigns, also for Bianca Belair. I mean, I think when she came out, it was hot. We didn't even talk about that part, you guys. I mean, I don't know if that was supposed to be a heel turn by Bianca. The hair cutting whole portion, that was weird. That whole part was bizarre. I mean, there's plenty of things to talk about. We didn't even talk about the Street Profits coming out. But I'll wrap it up with this to say, because there was a couple of kids behind us, and that's part of the whole deal, is seeing other people experience live wrestling, especially the young ones. And there was some kids behind us that had a Street Profits sign. And I heard the dad say, I guess the Street Profits aren't coming out, bud. why not? Well, they're just not on the card. And then at the very end, the last thing that happened, the Street Profits came out. Unfortunately, they both got RKO'd and kind of got buried. But that kid popped for a huge second there.
Let's talk about that kid for a second, because that kid is obviously all behind the Street Profits because they're fucking faces, and you wrote them to be faces, and they just came out and acted like a bunch of heels at the very end because you don't know how to fucking write. I'm talking to whoever's writing this, Dana Warrior. I'm talking to you. Anyway, so, being at Raw, I've been to several Raws, and I think the coolest part about being at Raw is that you feel like you are in the machine, like you are a part of this live television experience that just feels like, you're in the entertainment machine. And I always thought that was a cool part about Raw, but
yeah,
it sucks that you guys didn't get to experience the type of Raw that you were really wanting. Even though I knew for a fact Stone Cold Steve Austin was not going to get paid for 2 dates. And I also knew that we were not going to see Cody Rhodes possibly ever. So,
yay!
Well, you can say all you want to, Barker, but Cody Rhodes is the most talked about person in professional wrestling.
Go on Google Trends and find the fuck out. Go Google Trend Cody Rhodes and the Bella Twins and see which one's more talked about on the fucking internet, pal. You're in a bubble. We're in a bubble. Y'all got to get out this bubble. Nobody knows who that is. All he is that weird guy that sat beside T-Pain with the stupid tattoo on his neck on that stupid show that no one knows who he is. No one outside of wrestling knows who that guy is. He may think, he hopes, but
all you'd have to do is say Dusty Rhodes, and they'd be, oh, his kid, and then they know who he is. So that point is bullshit because they do know who he is. They know he's Dusty Rhodes' kid.
I don't know.
Hey, you know what? I bet you they'll know if he shows up at WrestleMania. I guarantee you he'll get a pop.
When Shane McMahon shows up, you mean?
Oh, man, that's going to be so... we'll talk about that on the WrestleMania preview. This has been another edition of hashtag HOK is everywhere when Matt Mullins and Adam Harris invaded Raw. We will be back here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe, and make sure you hit subscribe if you're listening to this on any of the awesome platforms where you can find the awesome House of Kayfabe. We will be right back here on the House of Kayfabe.